The crimson sun of Kepler 442 cast long shadows across the crystalline fortress as David checked his oxygen levels for the third time. 47 minutes remained. Not enough time to complete the mission, but enough to try. "You're insane," crackled Lieutenant Harris's voice through the comms. "The thermal signatures show at least 200 Xylothian warriors between you and the detention sphere." David adjusted his plasma rifle, his eyes fixed on the translucent dome where Elsa was being held. 3 days ago, she had been his commanding officer, the most brilliant xenolinguist humanity had ever produced. Now she was a hostage, captured during first contact negotiations that had gone catastrophically wrong. "I'm not leaving her," David said simply, cutting the transmission. The Xylothians were silicon-based life forms, their bodies resembling animated sculptures of obsidian and quartz. They communicated through light refraction patterns that danced across their crystalline surfaces, a language so complex that only Elsa had begun to decipher it. Without her, humanity's chances of peaceful coexistence with this species dropped to nearly zero. The military implications were clear: retrieve the asset or neutralize the threat. But David's calculations were different. Elsa had pulled him from the wreckage of the survey ship on Titan. She had recommended him for the diplomatic corps despite his lack of formal credentials. She had believed in him when the Admiralty saw only a mechanic from the outer colonies. He moved through the fortress's lower levels, using the thermal vents to mask his heat signature. The Xylothian's architecture was mathematically perfect, each corridor and chamber designed according to principles that human engineers were only beginning to understand. Gravity fluctuated unpredictably, a side effect of the exotic matter that powered their civilization. The first patrol detected him near the quantum stabilizer arrays. David didn't hesitate. His plasma rounds shattered 2 warriors before they could alert others, their crystalline bodies fragmenting into 1,000 refracting pieces. He felt sick, but he kept moving. By the time he reached the detention sphere, his oxygen meter read 19 minutes. Elsa was suspended in a stasis field, her body surrounded by a web of energy that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Her eyes were closed, but medical scanners showed she was alive, her neural activity elevated. They were studying her, mapping the neural pathways that allowed human consciousness to process their language. David placed the shaped charges around the containment unit's power conduits. 15 minutes of oxygen. He activated the timer, 60 seconds. The explosion never came. Instead, the chamber flooded with light so intense that his helmet's photochromic filters barely compensated. When his vision cleared, he found himself surrounded by 50 Xylothian warriors, their forms blazing with aggressive warning patterns. And before them stood the matriarch. She was twice the size of the warriors, her crystalline structure containing veins of what appeared to be pure starlight. The patterns that moved across her surface were so intricate, so rapid, that they seemed almost like thoughts made visible. David raised his rifle, knowing it was futile. His oxygen meter read 11 minutes. Then Elsa's voice filled his helmet. "David, don't. She's trying to communicate." The stasis field had deactivated. Elsa stood beside the matriarch, one hand raised in a gesture that was unmistakably peaceful. "They weren't interrogating me," Elsa continued, her voice exhausted but steady. "They were teaching me. David, their entire species is dying. A quantum cascade failure is spreading through their sun. They came to us because they need help, but our military fired first. The young princess, the matriarch's daughter, was killed in that first exchange." The matriarch's light patterns shifted, and through some technology David didn't understand, her meaning became clear in his mind. Not words, but pure conceptual transmission. "You came alone. You face certain death for one individual. This is unprecedented." "I couldn't leave her," David said, lowering his weapon. "Our mathematics predicted your species would sacrifice the individual for collective survival. You have proven our calculations incomplete. The matriarch moved closer, her form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow cascades. You risked obliteration for this female. In our culture, such devotion requires formal recognition. But my daughter, my heir, is gone. The bloodline fractures. Elsa's eyes widened. Your radiance, I don't think. I have studied your genetic patterns, Elsa linguist. Your neural architecture contains adaptations we require for integration. And this male, David mechanic, has demonstrated the honor values our people cherish. The translation matrix in David's mind suddenly blazed with impossible clarity. I will marry you to my daughter, the one who remains. From an alcove David hadn't noticed, another Zelothian emerged. She was smaller than the matriarch but infinitely more complex, her crystalline structure containing what looked like entire galaxies captured in mineral form. Her light patterns were directed entirely at David. I am Lysara, the translation came. Second daughter, hidden daughter, I have watched you through the fortress eyes. You destroy my warriors for love. You face death without hesitation. You would make worthy mate. This is happening too fast, David managed, his oxygen meter reading 5 minutes. The matriarch's patterns turned grave. Our son dies in what you measure as 73 days. We must merge our peoples or face extinction. This union, sanctioned by royal blood and human courage, creates legal foundation for integration under galactic convention protocols. You have created the possibility of peace, David mechanic. Elsa touched his arm. David, they've shown me the mathematics. If we refuse, both species suffer. The convention won't recognize any treaties without family bonds between species. This is bigger than us. His oxygen meter hit 3 minutes. David looked at the alien princess whose pattern seemed almost hopeful. He thought of the billions aboard the colony ships, the fragile peace humanity had barely achieved among itself, and the second chance this strange proposal represented. Will she, will I? You will live, Lysara's patterns promised. We will give you silicon integration nanites. You will breathe our atmosphere, share our light, and together we will save both our peoples. David's oxygen meter reached 2 minutes. He looked at Elsa, who nodded encouragingly. He looked at the matriarch, whose ancient light patterns conveyed desperate hope. He looked at Lysara, whose impossible beauty was only matched by the weight of destiny she carried. I accept, he said. The matriarch's light blazed with triumph. Then let it be known across all frequencies. The human who loved enough to die shall live forever in crystal and starlight, bound to my daughter, bridge between worlds. As the nanites entered his bloodstream and his biology began its impossible transformation, David's last thought before the change was simple. He had come to save one person and ended up saving 2 species. Love, it seemed, calculated differently than mathematics ever could.